there, I'm Anton from Anton's MINDSTORMS Hacks. In this video I want to show you how to run multiple SPIKE Prime motors or LEGO MINDSTORMS motors at exactly the same time. So this is important. For instance, with this model it's got 3 motors, one for each side of legs and then one at the bottom here to tilt the motor. And in this model I want to run one set of legs forward at exactly the same time when the other set of legs runs backwards. So I want to synchronize my motor movement here, and this is pretty hard in the current SPIKE Prime and MINDSTORMS software, because if you use a blue move to position block, you can only it completely executes before going to the next move to position block. And if you then want to move 2 motors to different positions, it's very hard to run that at the same time. However, there are multiple tricks to work around that limit, and that's what I'm going to show you in this video. Enjoy! You can download building instructions for this model on my website. But you can also just follow the video with a MINDSTORMS or a SPIKE hub and some motors connected to it and see how they run in sync or not. But it's a lot more fun with this model, because in the end of the video we get this model to walk forward. Okay, I've connected the SPIKE hub to my MacBook here and set up a new program, so we're ready to go and start synchronizing motors. The first thing you can try is using the blue block here, and so this moves motors to a certain position. The first thing we can do is actually selecting multiple motors here. Maybe you've overlooked this multiple block, but when you push that button you can select multiple motors and have them all run to a certain position. So this is a very simple first program. Let's see what that does. And this zeroes my motors. The way I've built it, it just centers the legs. And if I would say repeat that and make them move to 0 and then 180 a few times, you can see that the legs move at the same time, more or less. What's worse is that because we go shortest path here, sometimes they move in the same directions, sometimes they don't. So that's a very bad program, so it's very unpredictable here. We need to find something better. We can still use the multiple block here, but then we should build the model differently. So what we could do is, let me recenter the motors, and what we could do is make this yellow pin here, put it in a 0 position on one side and put it on a 180 position on the other side. So this is a more reliable program or build where at least the legs move at the same time in different directions, but I have to cheat and make my model asymmetric. I don't want to do that because it's a robot and I want full control over my motors. So I want my model to be symmetric, not asymmetric like this, and still retain full control over which leg goes where in which direction. So this multiple motor selection doesn't work here for our purposes. We're going to use something different, something more rugged, and we are going to use events, and we are going to broadcast events. So we could say broadcast the event. Let's make a new message and let's say left side forward, and of course we want to duplicate that and make another event, right side forward. Okay, and these broadcast blocks, they trigger head blocks, so those are the other head blocks, and then we can say when the left side, when we have a left side forward block, we'll duplicate that, because for moving the left side forward, that means, let me check that, so that's motor A has to be at 270. Okay, let's program that. Motor A goes to 270, and left side forward implies right side backward for me, so let's do that too. And motor B is also at 270. Actually, in this case we can use the multiple block again, but we will run into problems later, so let's make motor B move to 270. Okay, and we can duplicate that. And then we want the right side forward, that means motor B moves to 90 and motor A moves to 90 also. Okay, 90, 90. Change the head blocks, make them correct here. So let's see if we have a correct program. Okay, so that's one step, and these broadcasts, they work. We can put that into a loop again, and now we have synchronized the motors, and we're able to execute a movement command on different motors at the same time to different angles. In my specific project, the angles are the same, but for instance, if I would want to make both a program that says both legs forward, now I'm completely free to do so. So I can create a new event, a new message here, let's call it both legs forward, and let's create the head blocks with that, both legs forward, duplicate it. No, that means this one is forward and this one is forward. So using this broadcast trick, I can make sure that motor A goes to 270 and motor B goes to 90 at exactly the same time. So let's try that, see if I can show you how that works. Okay, now you saw both motors start at the same time and move to a different position, which is both forward here. So this is one way to do this. If you want to run two motors at the same time, you use a broadcast and then use different head blocks to trigger a move to position block, which will then be executed at the same time. So these will be executed together, those and these. Now, of course, moving the legs is one thing. We also want to move from side to side. So let's program that. Let me see. So the left side is forward, the right side is backward. In that case, I want to move the motor, I want to lift these legs so the left legs can pull back and the bug starts moving forward. So that means that this motor has to run to... Okay, so now it's ready. So now this side is lifted, and that is about 200 degrees on my motor D. Motor D. And then here I want motor D to move to a position. I should probably make sure that I run the motor D in the correct direction. If we tilt the robot left, yeah, it increases. So if we lift the left side, it increases, so we have to, that's clockwise. So this one is counterclockwise and this one is clockwise. That should work. Let's see how that works. Okay. So here we have synchronized the legs, the movement legs, and in between these movements we move motor D to tilt the bug so it can walk. Let's try that again. So this is one way to synchronize the motors with a broadcast and different head blocks. There is a second way to synchronize motors, and that is using the purple movement blocks. So I'll make a new program here and show how that works. Let's make a world block program. Now the movement here, moving straight, the movement is meant for robots that have two wheels and they have to move exactly straight. So this pink movement block is made to start motors and stop them at exactly the same time and run them at the same speed, so they are always in sync. And we can use this synchronization from the pink block to also run the legs of this Ladybug. We're going to zero the motors here, okay, and just use a simple start moving block. See what happens. Okay, so this is a pretty smooth movement. So we now the legs are moving at the same time, forward and backward, but we want to move them alternatingly. So we can simply do that by positioning the motors in a opposite position before we start, and then use the synchronized movement block. So for that we can use this. Now we can do the multiple motor hack and move both motors to say a 90-degree angle, and then start moving straight. Okay, now you can see with just by setting the motors in different starting positions and then using the pink block already, the legs move alternatingly and they are perfectly in sync. The pink block forces the motors to always be synchronized, and this is different than just starting the motors. Let me show you how that's different. If we would do this exact same program, but let's say we just start the motors forward, so we don't use the pink block but the blue block, then you'll see that the motors start going out of sync. Let's slow it all the way down to 20%. Okay, exactly the same program, but without using a pink block, with just blue blocks, and then I can break one motor and it will lose synchronicity. You can see that already they aren't completely in sync anymore. It tries to keep up, but it fails to do so, and the pink block makes sure that the motors always stay in sync and we get this nice synchronized movement all the time. So let me try the same thing with pink blocks. Now we have this nice alternating movement again. I'm going to make the robot run into trouble, and you will see that the motors do a much better job at catching up and staying in sync. They're all because of the magic of the pink block. And even so, if I hold this one, the other one even starts breaking because it wants to stay in sync. And that's all the property of the pink block. So the pink block does a lot of synchronization magic for us, and we can use that to make this ladybug walk. The only thing left to do right now is to make sure that the ladybug tilts to the right side at exactly in the right situation. For this we can do that by simply watching the positions of these motors and then triggering the D motor, which tilts the robot when these motors reach certain positions. What I'm seeing is that motor A is counting backwards and motor B is counting upwards, so we're going to watch motor B because it's easier, because this is an ever increasing number. The logic is simpler for me. Let's see how that works. This part of the program stays the same. Now the only thing we have to do is we could do it in a forever loop, or we could use head blocks, doesn't matter much. Let's use a forever loop, and then let's say if this motor B, if this leg is about what's it, about 60 degrees, if it's more than 60 degrees, then that's a great time, because that's when this leg is forward, that's a great time to lift the other side, so this leg can drag backward. That means so we just wait until the position of motor B is more than, let's say 50 degrees, and in that case we run motor D. Are we running it clockwise or counterclockwise? So we are lifting that side, we're running it clockwise, so that's positive to a position. Okay, so let's run it clockwise to position 170, and then duplicate this, wait until the motor B has moved what's 180 plus 50, so that's position 230. When it's over 230 degrees, then we will go counterclockwise to position 200, which is the other side. And we will loop that, so we will watch B and run D while the pink synchronization block is doing its magic. Let's see if we've made any programming mistakes here. Okay, so this is exactly as I imagined the Ladybug would walk in a smooth, continuous motion, and compared to the previous program, this is more organic because the motors seem to be moving all the time. It isn't as shaky, and it's pretty well synchronized with the magic of the pink block, and then we just use a forever loop to run the other motor in the right direction. So let's compare this to the previous project that we did, and you can see that put this one into slot 1. You can see that this program is, you can see it's much more robotic and less organic, and I prefer the other one here, where the movement is much smoother. It looks much more like a real animal. So, I hope you've learned a thing or two about motor synchronization and how this can really make your robot move much smoother. There is a lot of synchronization magic in the pink movement blocks that you can also leverage to do other things besides driving tanks and driving wheeled robots. And then using these forever loops, you can run a third motor depending on the position of another motor, and thus create quite complex movements that you need to run these legged styles of robots. If you want to go on after this video, it's a lot of fun to try and use the things that you learned in this video to make the Ladybug move forward, backward, and make it turn in position. If you download my building instructions from my website, you will get a full program where all the movements are programmed in. And you can also show your appreciation by supporting me on Patreon. Supporters of $10 and more, they always get my latest building instructions as soon as they appear, for free. That is at no added cost. But anyway, I'm already happy if you're watching and subscribing, so thanks for watching, and please subscribe, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.